Let's learn English by reading. Today I have an article by BBC News. It's called South Koreans Become Younger Under New Age Counting Law. So let's jump right into it with the title. Firstly, I want to bring this to your attention. Check this out, age counting. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because it looks like a noun and a gerund, right? But we've put them together with a dash, with a hyphen, and we've created an adjective. That's pretty amazing, okay? We can do that in many ways. So I am an English teaching person. Now, English teaching is an adjective. So that's pretty cool. You can play with that. So let's carry on with the article. South Koreans have become a year or two younger as a new law aligns the nation's two traditional age counting methods with international standards. Okay, so if you didn't know already, the news uses very advanced English. Okay, that's why we're here to pick up on the vocab and the style in which they write. So we have a couple of new words here, I think. Align. So what does that sound like? It sounds like the word line. So when you align two things, you put the lines in the same way. You make them have the same standard. They follow the same method. Okay. So here we have a new law aligns the nation's two traditional age counting methods. So it's taking those two age counting methods which didn't really match and it's making them match. Okay. Then we have this word, traditional. You may have heard this one. Traditional is something that we've done for years and years and years and years and years. Okay. So in my culture, the Christmas festivities are traditional. They go back hundreds of years, I believe. But even though a lot of our country is not religious anymore, we don't follow Jesus, even though the holiday is based on his birthday, we still follow the tradition. Okay, so that's just one example. You might have a tradition of going to eat with your parents every Friday night. That's also a tradition. Okay, but it's the opposite of modern, which we'll get into in a second. And here's our last word, standards. Okay, standards is the way in which something is set out. So here we're talking about international standards, the way that the rest of the world do something. So let's look at this paragraph again, and then we'll translate it into simpler English. South Koreans have become a year or two younger as a new law aligns the nation's two traditional age counting methods with international standards. Okay. So in other words, South Koreans have become a year or two younger as they are using a new law to put their traditional way of counting people's age, and they're aligning it, they're making it standard with the rest of the world. They're making it match the rest of the world. The law scraps one traditional system that deemed South Koreans 1 year old at birth, counting time in the womb. Okay, so we have counting. You probably know that means 1, 2, 3. I'm counting. Now here we're counting time in the womb. Okay, here we mean we're including it. Okay, so I could say I haven't eaten anything today. Oh, not counting those vitamins I took. Right. So you could count those vitamins. You could include the vitamins in what I ate today, but I didn't count them. Okay. And then we have this word, the womb. Okay. The womb is the part of the body where a baby grows. Okay. So South Korea was counting, they were including the time that you were becoming a baby in the womb, inside your mother. They were counting that time in your age, which explains why South Koreans were 1 year old when they were born. Kind of. Okay, let's continue. Another age counting method counted everyone as aging by a year every first day of January instead of their birthdays. Okay, I think this one isn't too bad. The switch to age counting based on birth date took effect on Wednesday. President Yoon Suk-yeol pushed strongly for the change when he ran for office last year. The traditional age counting methods created unnecessary social and economic costs, he said. Okay, we've got a lot of advanced vocab here. Let's check it out. Okay, the switch. You may have heard this word. It means the change, the swap. Okay, they changed to a new age counting method. Actually, they did this on Wednesday, just a few days ago, and now they follow the rest of the world, where you are 0 when you were born, and you age 1 year on the anniversary of the date you were born. Okay. President Yoon Suk-yeol pushed strongly for the change. Push strongly for the change. When you push for something, it means that you are trying hard to get something done. So it could be in a big way, like here with the government. You might push for the government to recognize the rights of a group of people, for example. But here they're pushing strongly for change on the age counting law. And in your household, you could push strongly to have a family film night every Wednesday, for example. Okay, so that's push. And when you push strongly, of course, that's even more. Okay, and he ran for office. Okay, this is a phrase. You don't want to break this up because you'll lose the meaning. But when you run for office, it means you are campaigning. You are trying to be the president or the mayor, something like that. Okay, so he wasn't the president last year, but he pushed strongly to change this law when he ran for office, when he tried to become president last year. That was one of the big things he said he would change if he became president. And look, he became president and he's doing it. So that's pretty good. A lot of presidents and prime ministers don't do what they say. Okay, the traditional age counting methods created unnecessary social and economic costs. If something is unnecessary, it means not necessary. You've probably noticed that before. Putting un at the start of a word means not. But what does necessary mean? It means needed. So here, the social and economic costs are not needed. But what is social? Okay, good question. Okay, social refers to between people. Okay, so for example, in my country, we have a social benefit system. So for example, if you are disabled and you can't work, or you are looking for work and struggling to find a job, you can get some money from the government, from the taxes, to help pay for your life. These are social costs. These are the costs for people. And we have economic costs. Economic almost always refers to money, okay? So there are costs for social, there are costs for people, and there are costs for money, okay? So we have some kind of disadvantage for the people and we are losing money. We'll find out what exactly he's talking about in a second. For instance, okay, for example, disputes have arisen over insurance payouts and determining eligibility for government assistance programs. Whew, okay, I think that is our most advanced paragraph yet. Okay, a dispute means a disagreement. Okay, so here it might be a big disagreement like over insurance payouts. You know, if you're younger, you might need to pay more on your car insurance. And here we have insurance payouts. That's where the insurance company pays you. Maybe they will pay you less or more depending on your age. Okay, pay out. I pay something out to someone. Arisen. I should come back to that one. Look in the middle of this word. Rise. Okay, come up. So these disagreements, these disputes have come up. They've become known and talked about over insurance payouts and determining eligibility. Determining eligibility. When you determine something. You decide something. So I have determined that this video will be 15 minutes long, for example. I actually don't know how long this video will be. But it's something I decided, right? I've determined I will spend my evening playing video games. And then eligibility. You are able to get something. Okay. So perhaps in your country, certainly in mine, when you are 4 years old, you are eligible to go to school. Okay. Finally, you are able to start school. You can't start it before, but once you're 4, you are eligible. And in fact, you have to. Government assistance programs, help from the government, and programs is just lots of the different ways that they help. So a government assistance program could be payouts for the elderly once you retire. It could be payouts for disabled people. It could be opening food kitchens and shelters for homeless people and people who don't have so much money right now. That is a government assistance program. Let's continue. Previously, the most widely used calculation method in Korea was the centuries-old Korean age system, in which a person turns 1 at birth and gains a year on the 1st of January. This means a baby born on the 31st of December will be 2 years old the next day. Okay, so now I think if you're not from Korea, you're starting to understand why this was an issue. This was a problem in Korea. So we've got a couple of nice phrases to use here. Previously, the most widely used. Okay, it's used the most widely, used in the most places. I'll give you an example for language. English is the most widely used language at the moment because it's spoken in the most places. And you might say, well, Mandarin Chinese is spoken by more people. It's true, but it's not more widely used because Mandarin Chinese is used in only a few countries, even though one of those countries has more than 1 billion people. Okay, so widely used, used in a lot of places. Widely used calculation method. A method is a way. Okay, so a way of calculating, a way of putting these numbers together. So 1 plus 1, that's a calculation, for example. Previously, the most widely used calculation method in Korea was the centuries-old Korean age system. Century means 100 years. And let me give you an extra tip. This word cent, when you see it, it's almost always going to mean 100. I'll give you an example. There are 100 cents to the dollar. And of course, we know of percent. Okay? So per 100. Pretty good, right? It's nice to pick up these little tips, and then when you see new words, you can kind of see how they built it and understand what that word means. Let's continue. Previously, the most widely used calculation method in Korea was the centuries-old Korean age system, in which a person turns 1 at birth and gains a year on the 1st of January. When you gain something, it means you get something. Okay, so this year I've gained 2 kilos. For example, I got something. And you could even use this on things that are ongoing. So for example, as I get older, I gain more experience. As I teach English, I gain more knowledge about how people learn. Okay, there's one example. This means a baby born on the 31st of December will be 2 years old the next day. A separate counting age system that was also traditionally used in the country considers a person 0 at birth and adds a year on the 1st of January. Okay. So now you're 0 when you were born, like the rest of the world, but you share a birthday with everybody else on the 1st of January. So that's a little bit confusing. Let's take a look. We have this word consider. Okay. You consider something, it means you sort of believe it to be this way, or for the sake of this law, for the sake of this system, you're going to say it's this way. This means that, for example, as of the 28th of June 2023, a person born on the 29th of June 2003 is 19 under the international system, 20 under the counting age system, and 21 under the Korean age system. Okay, so there's actually 3 systems going on here. In Korea, for most people, there are 2 systems, the Korean age system and the counting age system. So remember, that's where you're born at 1 year old or 0 years old. But for both of them, you turn another year older on the 1st of January. And then we have the international system, which is all of us, the rest of these countries. While I'm here, let me give you a little tip for international. Okay, let's break it up. Inter, we've got nation, right? And then all. So inter means between. So whenever you see that in another word, you'll know that means between. And then nation is the countries, the nations. So international means between nations. And the ul there just turns it into an adjective. Let me give you another example. Internet. Internet means between networks. Okay, so you'll notice this as you read English that there are a lot of words, but there are only so many word parts. And once you know the word parts, you can often figure out the meaning of the new word. Lawmakers voted to scrap the traditional counting methods last December. Okay, this word scrap means to throw away. Okay, so I might scrap my plans for dinner this evening. I'm going to throw away, I'm going to stop doing the plans, I'm not going to do them. I'm going to scrap my plans for dinner. So lawmakers, people who make the laws, voted to scrap the traditional counting methods last December. Despite the move, despite means even though there was this move, okay? Even though there was this move, many existing statutes, it's a big word, statutes is more or less law, okay? Many existing laws that count a person's age based on the counting age. So remember, that's when you're born at 0 years old, but you become 1 year older in January. Let's go back. Despite the move, many existing statutes that count a person's age based on the counting age calendar year system will remain. Okay, we will keep that system. For example, South Koreans can buy cigarettes and alcohol from the year, not the day they turn 19. Okay, and I can see why they do this. There's both sides to this story. Of course, when you're 19 years old, you might be interested in a few different things, cigarettes, alcohol, but also things like gambling or watching a movie even. Okay, let's talk about movies. It's a bit of a nicer topic. If you are 19 and all of your friends are still 18, then only you can go watch this movie, which kind of sucks, to be honest. But if you all turn 19 at the same time, you can all watch that movie together. So I can see in a social way why Korea might have done this. But it's not just movies, is it? It's alcohol, cigarettes, and things like that, and we must protect children. So it's difficult. You can see both sides to this. Let's continue. 3 in 4 South Koreans were also in favor of the standardization. Okay, when you're in favor of something, it means you support something. So for example, around 50% of Scottish people were in favor of gaining independence. They were in favor of leaving the UK. And then we have this word, standardization. That's a big word too. This word standardize means to put things into a similar order or a similar way. So in our example today, the Korean age system was very different to the rest of the world. So when they standardize with the rest of the world, they're making it the same way. And then we have, according to a poll by local firm Hankook Research in January 2022. Okay, a poll is when you ask people, for example, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? Oh, chocolate. Okay, you'll mark that down. And then you ask 100 people, and then you conclude, okay, 27 people wanted chocolate, 33 wanted strawberry, and the rest wanted vanilla. Okay, that is a poll, the thing where you went out and asked people. So here we had a poll by Hankook Research in January 2022. Now I'm going to read this whole article at the end, so don't worry if you're not totally following the story. Some, like Jong-suk Woo, hope the change will help break down Korea's hierarchical culture. A couple of big words. Let's start with the phrasal verb to break down. Okay, think of break. We literally mean to break something, and when you break it down, it means you're breaking it into little pieces. Let's give you a literal example. Maybe you have a brick wall you need to smash. You need to break it. You might use a hammer. You're breaking it down into little rocks, into little bricks, maybe. So here, this is what Jong-suk Woo wants to do with Korea's hierarchical culture. He wants to break it down. He doesn't want it to exist. This word hierarchical comes from the word hierarchy. That's where we have a power system. We have this in most cultures. You have a boss, you have a president or a prime minister. They are above you in some ways. They have control over what you do in some ways. Now here, it sounds like Jong-suk Woo thinks that Korea has an extreme version of this, and probably based on age, and they would like to see it end. There is a subconscious layer of ageism in people's behavior. Subconscious refers to things that happen in our brain that we don't think about, okay? So an obvious example would be walking. When you're walking, you're not thinking, this leg forward, this leg back. You're not thinking like that. You're just doing it because the subconscious part of your brain can do it without you thinking. So here they're saying that this layer of ageism in people's behavior, it's not something people choose to do. It's not something they think about. It's like automatic. Okay, let's come back. Ageism. You might notice this ism is similar to other horrible words like racism and sexism. Okay, putting this ism on the end often refers to discriminating against someone because of their sex, because of their race, or here, because of their age. So in Korea, according to Jong-suk Woo, there is this ageism in the culture between people. You are treated differently based on how old you are. They go on to say, this is evident even in the complex language system based on age. Evident is close to evidence. Okay, so they're saying we can see this for sure. We know that this ageism exists because we can see it. Okay, it's true. We can prove it. And they go on to talk about the complex, the difficult language system based on age. So I suppose in Korean, in the South Korean dialect, it's different. So I suppose in the South Korean dialect, you change the way you speak depending on how old the person you're talking to is. They go on to say, I hope the abolition of Korea's age system and the adaptation of international standards get rid of old relics of the past. This word abolition, okay, means the banning of something or the getting rid of something. Here's an example from the US many years ago, I think in the 30s, although I might be wrong. They abolished alcohol. Alcohol was illegal at that time. It didn't work out for America, but here they're saying that making the Korean age system not legal or banning it, taking it away, would be good. The adaptation of the international standards. When we adapt to something, we change to fit it. Okay. So for example, we now live in a society where we have technology. I have a camera, I have a computer, I have a microphone, and I have a mouse. 30 years ago, probably I wouldn't have had any of this. So I have adapted to use these things. I don't really use paper anymore. It's all on the computer. That's one thing I've adapted. I've adapted to technology. So here, they're hoping that the Korean age system will be abolished, it will be taken away, and Korea will adapt, they will change to the international standards, get rid of old relics of the past. This word relic, it doesn't come up too much these days, only really in this phrase, old relics. And he's gone even further by saying old relics of the past. So a relic is something you would find from the past. For example, if you go digging somewhere, you might find some old coins. Those would be relics from the past, physical relics that you can touch. But we have relics in our societies too. I won't go into too much detail about what those are because maybe they're controversial. But you might think of something in your society that is so old-fashioned it doesn't make sense in modern society. We'll call it an old relic. Okay, and it says this person is a content creator. That is a job title, very similar to my job, where you create content for the internet, usually videos, could be music, it could be a podcast. Content is something you consume by watching or listening. Another resident, Hyun Jong-byun. If anybody's Korean and watching this, I'm very sorry about the way I'm saying these Korean names, but I'm doing my best, I can assure you. Another resident, Hyun Jong-byun, said, I love it because now I'm 2 years younger. My birthday is in December, so I always felt like this Korean age system is making me socially older than what I actually am. Now this is interesting. They say that this Korean age system is making them socially older than what they actually are. In other words, they are having to act like they are older than they are. Now, when you get to your late 20s, 30s, 40s, and so on, 2 years is not much. But think about when you're a teenager, from 12 to 14, there's a huge difference. So when this person was 12 years old, they had to act like they were 14. Okay, it's quite a difficult task. There's also a big jump between 16 and 18. There's a big jump between 22 and 24. Okay, so that is another problem that this Korean age system caused. Now that Korea is following the global standard, I no longer have to explain my Korean age when I go abroad. Okay, not too bad here. The word abroad just means a country that isn't your country. The 31-year-old doctor said South Korea's medical sector has already been adopting the international age system. So that's quite interesting. They're saying that in the medical sector, so that means jobs in hospitals, doctor's office, pharmacies, things like that, places to do with medicine, they've already been adopting the international age system. When we adopt something like a habit, it just means take something on, okay? So maybe I'll adopt a habit of waking up early and exercising. That could be a way to adopt. Okay, you could also adopt a child, take a child on to your life, take them into your life. So we can do habits, we can do children, we can do animals this way. The traditional age counting methods were also used by other East Asian countries, but most have dropped it. So that's the same as abolish, to take away. Most have just stopped using it. Okay, so I woke up early once, I exercised, and then I dropped it. I gave it up. Japan adopted the international standards in 1950, while North Korea followed suit in the 1980s. When you follow suit, it just means following someone else's lead. Okay, so Japan did something, North Korea looked at it, thought, yeah, we should do that. Maybe you followed suit in other ways. Maybe you are in a crowd and everybody starts singing. Maybe you'll follow suit and start singing too. Okay, so we've got a lot of new words in here, a lot of complicated words, but it's okay. Remember, you need to encounter vocabulary between 5 and 11 times to fully understand it and fully be able to use it in your own conversations. So here we've got at least 1 or 2 for each of these words. So we're pretty close to hitting that 5 benchmark. So I'm going to read through the entire article now. I'm not going to stop, and I want you to try to follow along using the new vocabulary you know to understand it. South Koreans become younger under new age counting law. South Koreans have become a year or two younger as a new law aligns the nation's 2 traditional age counting methods with international standards. The law scraps one traditional system that deemed South Koreans 1 year old at birth, counting time in the womb. Another counted everyone as aging by a year, every first day of January, instead of on their birthdays. The switch to age counting based on birth date took effect on Wednesday. President Yoon Suk-yeol pushed strongly for the change when he ran for office last year. The traditional age counting methods created unnecessary social and economic costs, he said. For instance, disputes have arisen over insurance payouts and determining eligibility for government assistance programs. Previously, the most widely used calculation method in Korea was the centuries-old Korean age system, in which a person turns 1 at birth and gains a year on the 1st of January. This means a baby born on the 31st of December will be 2 years old the next day. A separate counting age system that was also traditionally used in the country considers a person 0 at birth and adds a year on the 1st of January. This means that, for example, as of the 28th of June 2023, a person born on the 29th of June 2003 is 19 under the international system, 20 under the counting age system, and 21 under the Korean age system. Lawmakers voted to scrap the traditional counting methods last December. Despite the move, many existing statutes that count a person's age based on the counting age calendar year system will remain. For example, South Koreans can buy cigarettes and alcohol from the year, not the day, they turn 19. 3 in 4 South Koreans were also in favour of the standardization, according to a poll by local firm Hankook Research in January 2022. Some, like Jung Suk-woo, hope the change will help break down Korea's hierarchical culture. There is a subconscious layer of ageism in people's behaviour. This is evident even in the complex language system based on age. I hope the abolition of the Korean age system and the adaptation of the international standard get rid of old relics of the past, said the 28-year-old content creator. Another resident, Hyun Jong-byun, said, "I love it because now I'm 2 years younger. My birthday is in December, so I always felt like this Korean age system is making me socially older than what I actually am. Now that Korea is following the global standard, I no longer have to explain my Korean age when I go abroad." The 31-year-old doctor said South Korea's medical sector has already been adopting the international age system. The traditional age counting methods were also used by other East Asian countries, but most have dropped it. Japan adopted the international standard in 1950, while North Korea followed suit in the 1980s. Now guys, in the comments, I want you to let me know what you think about this story. Not just that, I want you to let me know what you learned from this video, any new vocabulary. Maybe you could make some examples in the comments, and I'll be able to come in and correct them, and other students can correct them too. In the description, you'll find a link to the original article. I haven't changed anything here. I've said every single word the way it was written, but you might want to see it for yourself. I'll see you next time.